Welcome to the True Wealth Investors Real Estate Podcast. Creative investing strategies to help you build true wealth. I'm your host, Chad Harris. Hey everybody, today's episode is the first of three on a presentation I made recently about how to make multiple offers to sellers. So in today's competitive market, if we can give a seller multiple options and ways we can purchase their house, then we'll get more offers accepted because each seller has their own motivation. They have different pain points, different issues. That's true whether it's listed with a realtor or whether you're dealing with the seller directly. And so if you figure out how to give them multiple offers, you'll get more deals. That's what we're after. So today's episode specifically is the first portion of the presentation about how to raise money from private lenders. So if we're going to need to pay all cash for a deal and get that deal well below its value, then it's really beneficial if we can use money from private lenders instead of our own. And so I'm going to walk through the process of how to find private lenders, how to raise money from them, what that looks like. If you're listening to it and you feel like, well, I just don't know the right people, then I've put together a guide of the 37 best places to find private lenders. You can download that at truewealthinvestors.com/find lenders. We'll put the link in the show notes. So if that's kind of your struggle, you feel like you just don't know the right people or aren't around the right people, just download that guide and it'll walk you through the best places to find those lenders. All right, enjoy. So this is a ton of information in here. We're going to be talking about funding deals with other people's money. And so a lot of people, what I hear when they say, well, eventually I want to do this, get into rentals or buy apartments, or maybe it's even flips, and they say, but first I need to do something else to get money. And I would always argue that you should start building the business that you want in the end from the beginning. So if you want to get into rentals, let's get into rentals now. If you want to get into flipping, let's get into flipping now. But we don't want to say, I'm going to learn to wholesale so that someday I can do rentals, or I'm going to learn how to wholesale so someday I can flip, right? We want to start with the end in mind. And so the presentation tonight is actually two presentations that I used to do separately, and we combined them. And so it's going to be a ton of information. I'm going to go through it kind of quickly, but please, if you have a question, throw it in the chat. My main man here, Elias, is running the chat and helping me with that. And so if you throw a question in there, I'll either answer it directly, or if it's coming up in the presentation, we'll just wait till it's covered then. All right. So yeah, like I was saying, what are your goals? What do you want to do in the end? Okay, what do we want to accomplish? Usually when we talk about our goals as this thing far in the future, like this mountaintop here, it's kind of gray and a little fuzzy. And usually what we see clearly are all of the obstacles leading up to it. So one of those obstacles that we normally see is funding. And I'm hoping that after tonight, you don't feel like funding is an issue, because when I started my business, I didn't have any funding and just found creative ways to be able to grow the business. All right. And you can too. So what we're talking about, these are not super complicated skills, but they're skills and ideas that you don't hear normally, but work really well. And so we're going to solve the funding tonight. And the other issue that I see is just that you need to be committed. All right. So if you have this goal, whatever that goal is on the mountaintop, you want to build a certain size business, you want to have a certain amount of cash flow, you want to live on the beach with umbrellas in your drinks, whatever that goal is, I want you to commit to it, right? In your heart, commit that no matter what it takes, you're going to do the tasks to be able to see it through. You are going to be successful. So I already shared a little of my introduction. We're buy and hold investors. I have 4 children. My unique backstory, I guess, was that we were missionaries overseas in Kenya for 4 years. And so one of the unique things from that job was that I needed to raise all the money for the work. So I raised about $1 million to support the ministry there. When we came home and my youngest son was born, he had medical issues. And so we couldn't return to Kenya. And that's what initiated us going into real estate. And I leveraged the skills I'd learned to raise money for ministry to be able to raise money for real estate. And we're going to talk about those skills today. And so we started in 2013 and built our business. And in the past few years, it's been really interesting as we grew our business and our staff and kind of filled out those systems to take care of things. One of our dreams was to buy a farm. That was like one of those someday dreams. And 2 years ago, we were able to buy a farm. It didn't cost me any money out of pocket. The deal was put together with seller financing and money from private lenders. And so we were able to fulfill our dreams, not by saving money over years and years and years, but by learning skills. And once I understood the skills and could apply them, then I could accomplish those goals. And I know it's the same for you. You'll be able to accomplish your goals so much faster than you think when you just learn the skills. All right. So this is my crew on a hot, sweaty day 2 years ago in June. And then additionally, with the extra time, I like to teach and do things like this. And I have a podcast. We talked about that last main meeting, but you can find a lot of great interviews on the podcast. All right. So in our time today, we are going to cover the 2 ways we buy real estate. And we're going to talk about some key words to use and how to make presentations. And just so we're on the same page, I wanted to reference this Zig Ziglar quote. You can get everything in life you want if you'll just help enough other people get what they want. And so the secret, I believe, in growing a successful business is that we are just trying to serve other people. All right. So if I'm talking about how to phrase things or what words to use, let's just understand that we are never talking about how to manipulate somebody or how to get somebody to do something that we want. All we're talking about in communication is how to communicate effectively so that we can serve them well and they realize the opportunity. So our business will naturally grow if we are able to help more people. So traditional financing, if we try to grow our business, whatever it is, if it's flipping, buy and hold, short-term rentals, midterm rentals, whatever it is, traditional financing can lead to some problems. We're going to miss out on deals and we're going to grow much slower. And so some of those issues are all cash deals, let's say through a wholesaler where you don't have time to wait for financing. It could be quick close deals where you need to close within 7 days or 14 days. There's no way banks will work for that. Distressed properties, there's plenty of properties we've bought that a bank would not lend on the property. It could be rising interest rates, as we've all seen in the last 18 months or so. Interest rates have jumped drastically. And yet, interestingly, the rates we pay private lenders have not gone up at all because interest rates to private lenders are not tied to the interest rates that we pay to banks. Those are 2 separate things. So we'll talk about that. Additionally, banks have a long approval time, seasoning period, where you'll need to have whatever money you use for the purchase in there for a certain period of time, even to refinance it. They have strict requirements. And with a recession looming, who knows what bank financing will look like or traditional financing will look like down the road. We don't want any of these things to hold us back. We're going to grow our business and accomplish our goals either way, right? And we're going to take full ownership for that. So, what if funding was not a problem? How many units would you buy? How many flips would you do? But more importantly, what difference would it make in your life? Right? That's the reason we're all in this business, not for tenants and toilets and those joys. We are in it so that it can change our life and change the lives of those that we care about. And so, what difference would it make? And kind of a key concept here, one, we've talked about how businesses are built by serving other people. The second one is that money is made in putting deals together. So, us as real estate investors, when we structure good deals, we are the prize. We're never going to go to a bank or go to a private lender and beg for money as though the money is the prize. All right. If we are able to find good deals and structure those deals well, then the deal and us are the prize because we're able to do these creative things. And there are a whole bunch of people who are out there looking for exactly what we can offer. All right. So this is kind of the starting phrase, and I'll use this phrase when I talk to sellers as well, but this frames the whole discussion tonight. So we buy houses two ways. One, we pay all cash and buy the house at a discount. Or two, we're willing to pay more if we can pay the owner over time. All right, so those are the two ways. All cash at a discount, which in that case, we're going to use money from a private lender, or we'll pay more if we can pay that seller over time, which is seller financing. And so we can make multiple offers to these sellers, or through the realtor we're working with, we can make these offers the same way and give them the ability to choose, and it's going to benefit us either way. Whichever one helps them, whichever offer helps them the most is going to be good for us. And we'll get into the details of how to structure those offers. All right. So in raising private money, here's a quick example. Eric, when I first met Eric, he was doing these really nice flips, and he'd done some new build construction, and he was making good money off of the deals, but he never had enough of his own money to finance the deal. And so he was taking on a partner, and it was working for him. The partner was funding the deal. Eric didn't have to use any of his own money. The problem was every time Eric found the deal and did all the work with him and his crew and then sold it, he was splitting all of the profits with his partner, which meant that in the end, that was really expensive money, right? It was nice that he didn't have to use his own, but it was super expensive. And so he learned how to raise money from a private lender. And this was a deal he did. This was a flip in Northridge. And he bought the property for $55,000, raised the full purchase price from a private lender, so he didn't have to use any of his own money for the purchase. It was 8% interest with no payment for the full time he used the money. Just once he sold the flip, he'd pay his lender back. 8% interest was much lower than a hard money lender and much lower than splitting equity with a partner. He put about 50,000 into the property. And so I think the combined investment was around 110. And so he sold the property for 180, $70,000 profit. So that's a good flip, right? Good numbers. But realizing that because he raised money from a private lender, he made twice as much as he would have had he taken an equity partner like he had been doing for years, right? So in essence, this deal, he made 70,000, but if he had done it the old model with the partner, he would have only made 35,000. So he made an extra 35,000 just by learning how to raise money from a private lender. Okay, so who is a private lender? We're going to make the distinction tonight where there are professional lenders, and that can be a bank, credit union, a hard money lender, other lenders who call themselves private lenders even. But for the discussion tonight, a professional lender is someone where they dictate the terms. They're going to tell you what the interest rate is and how long the loan's for, and they're going to provide the paperwork. Okay, that is not really what we're talking about tonight. So what we're talking about tonight, a private lender like we're talking about tonight, is someone who is already investing in other assets. They're comparing investments between stocks and mutual funds and index funds and CDs and different things. And so when we present the opportunity for them to be a lender in our business, then they're comparing that investment to the other investments they already have. So in the SEC's eyes, that's considered sophisticated. They understand investments. And when we present the opportunity, they're not used to lending money. This isn't a business that they have. And so they're going to ask us, well, what is the interest rate that's paid? So we're the ones saying we offer 7% interest. We offer investments for a 5-year term or a 30-year term, whatever it is we're really after. We get to dictate what the terms are. And once they agree, then we're going to be the ones that provide the paperwork or the documents. Okay. So that's the distinction. So for who exactly we're talking about dealing with here. And this phrase I use with the private lenders all the time is just like the bank. So the investment that they make is just like an investment a bank makes. Okay. And so we are going to get a loan from the private lender just like we would get a loan from the bank. Our private lender has the same security that a bank has. We all know that banks are nice, big, fancy buildings, and everybody in there is dressed really nicely. They don't make risky investments. They're very profitable. And so what we offer people is also profitable, also secured by real estate, just like a bank loan. All right. And a word of encouragement for you guys. So usually whenever this discussion of how we raise money from private lenders begins, there are some people who say, well, I would never want to ask somebody else for money. Maybe you're thinking that in your head right now. That, I understand how to structure a loan and how a mortgage works, but I don't want to go ask somebody else for money. So the encouragement is that what we do in real estate, other people who aren't in real estate really admire. A whole bunch of people sit on their couch with the remote watching HGTV just because they want to watch somebody else do real estate and they wish they could be involved. All right. So in their eyes, all of us on this call tonight, we are rock stars. We are doing things that they would love to do. Okay. Now I know I can't hear you because most everybody's muted, but go ahead and say it to yourself alone in the room. I am a rock star. Yeah, I like it, Kim. Yeah, I love it. Rock star. So all of us here are doing really amazing things. And there are a lot of other people around us who would like to be involved. They just don't even know that there's that opportunity. Okay. And we're going to give them the opportunity to be involved in real estate as our lender. So, who is our ideal lender? Generally, this isn't always true, but generally, they're not in the real estate space. So, you may run into your ideal private lender at one of our main meetings, but more likely, at least in my experience, our ideal lender is not in real estate, but they would love to be. And they're already in other investments, they're in stocks, mutual funds, whatever the other investments are. And they would love the opportunity to get into real estate, but they don't know how. Okay. That is our ideal lender. That's a question a lot of people will ask me. Well, where do you find the ideal lender? And I'm sure if you think about it, you can think of somebody who has money in stocks or mutual funds or a retirement account. These are not super rare individuals. There are a lot of people all around us in our community who have some money invested in another asset. Okay. And this took me a long time to learn, the hard way, I might add, learn through a whole bunch of rough lessons that we need to structure. If we can structure our investments that we offer, if we can structure them to look like what a stock investor wants, then we will have a much higher rate of getting our opportunities accepted, right? Of closing that loan, of a private lender lending us money. And so the more we can do that, the more appealing it will look to them. And that brings about some interesting things that don't really fit with what you see with traditional lenders. So one of those things would be traditional lenders generally do an amortized payment. Okay. And with an amortized payment, you pay principal and interest each month. Over time, you pay the loan off. Well, for a stock investor, that really does not look appealing because every month you're paying them part of their investment back, and so they're getting a lower return, right? If their return is 7%, let's say, well, every month as you pay principal back, they're only getting 7% on the money that we still have invested in the mortgage, and all of the principal sitting in their bank accounts earning nothing. So that actually harms their return. So it's more beneficial to do it interest only, because that looks more like a stock dividend where they leave their investment in place and each month they get the proceeds, the profits, the interest paid to them. All right. Another thing is that a lot of times we'll structure, or a myth I had was I thought lenders wanted their money paid back right away. And I kind of assumed that that's how hard money came about and why there were short-term loans for real estate. But what I found is that most lenders want to leave their money invested, right? Just like when they invest in their retirement account, it sits there and they don't move it unless something really has to change. And so if we can offer an investment where their money stays invested for a long period of time and they get a good return from it, that is going to match what they want. Okay. Which is a long note, interest only, much different than what you would normally see in a real estate world. All right. So those are just two examples. The more we can structure the investment we offer, the more we can structure it like a stock, the more our lenders will like it. All right, so why do they lend to us? Real easy, it benefits them. So as long as we are serving them and benefiting them, they will want to lend to us. And there's 5 major benefits here. So they're going to get a higher rate of return than they would in a lot of other areas. So Even with interest rates rising at banks, we still pay our private lenders 6 to 8%. That hasn't changed. Really, because the returns that they can get other places haven't really changed. And they're looking for a way to diversify their portfolio and not have everything at risk in the stock market. Okay. So even if, we've had some people say, well, I could go get a CD, a 6-month CD, and earn 5.25%. Well, that is true. The response is always, that is true, but what happens after the 6 months, right? Interest rates are going to be going down. How are you going to get a return after that? I'm talking about a way for you to get a return for 6 years, not 6 months. Okay. And so we are looking for relationships with people where we're going to help them for years and years and years. And 6 to 8% still works very well for them. Their investment is secured by real estate, massive benefit. So it's not that the value of their investment fluctuates depending on a tweet from a CEO or the whim of the stock market. Their investment's going to stay the same, and it's always backed by real estate. They can get monthly income from their investment, which is hard to do in the stock market. They can diversify their investments. Anybody who has talked to a financial planner has heard the value of diversification and how beneficial that is to them. But they don't even know that being a lender in real estate is something they can include in their portfolio until we meet generally. But this is a great way for them to diversify. If they have a retirement account, usually the investment options are even more limited for them. And so it's a really good way that we can help them roll that into a self-directed retirement account, and then they can be a lender with us. And number 5, it's an easy way for them to invest in real estate, right? People with some disposable income and investments and assets, they like talking to other people about investments and assets and what they're putting their money into. And it's a great way for them to share with others how they're investing in real estate. It's a real easy way for them to get into real estate. All of these are massive benefits to them. So I would encourage you, you are never going to go out and ask for money, right? You should not be shy as though the people that we're going to meet don't want you to come talk to them. Because in reality, here are 5 major reasons they would love to be given the opportunity to be a lender in the business. And so we should be bold in sharing this opportunity. We don't ever have to ask for money. We are just sharing an opportunity with them. And if they recognize how great it is for them, they will be our lenders. Okay. All right, some ways to structure deals. We're not going to focus on this a whole lot today. But generally, the vast majority, we're going to do a first mortgage. And with that, you have a note that explains how the loan will be repaid. And then you have a mortgage deed that is recorded with the county that's a lien against the property. That's what we're going to do with the vast majority of lenders. There are some instances where that mortgage structure becomes a hindrance to lenders. Let's say we're doing a bunch of flips, and every time we buy and sell the house, the lender has to either send money to the title company or sign a release of lien, and they're constantly being involved. And so if you're doing those types of deals, then a master promissory note is a better option for them, because then the note is secured by the business and not the deal. And so you can roll those investments into multiple deals. And then, as I said, you can structure the payments a number of ways. Amortized like a traditional bank loan. Generally, that's not the best option for our lenders. We can structure it interest only. That's going to be the best option for the vast majority of them. And then we can also do no payment So there's no payment while you have the loan, and the interest accrues and just gets paid off with the principal at the end of the loan. And that's a great structure if you have a massive rehab on a flip, or even a really big rehab on something you're going to keep as a rental. It's nice to have no payment in that period where you're doing the rehab, because the asset isn't giving us any cash flow, right? So it's frustrating. It was always frustrating for me having a payment on the loan when the asset's not giving me any cash. So that no payment structure is really good for that short-term period. All right, here's one other quick example. This is in North Dayton, right off Riverside. This property was purchased. The seller reached out to me, wanted to sell. I had bought a rental off of them a few years back. Purchase price was $40,000. It's a nice little 1-story, 2-bedroom house, which I like those small 1-story houses. The rehab was pretty simple, $7,000. It was pretty much just paint, a couple minor repairs, and I think a little bit of vinyl flooring in a couple rooms. So our total investment was $47,000. We got a loan from a private lender for $52,000. The ARV was $75,000. And so you can see the loan that we got from our private lender was $5,000 more than the money invested. So we got $5,000 when we purchased the property. The $52,000 is still a low loan to value for the value of that house fixed up. That's what the ARV is, the after repair value. The payment on the loan, that was 8% interest only, so it's $373 a month. The rent's $850 a month. So we got paid $5K at closing. How many deals can you do if when you go to the title company for the closing, you get paid money? Answer is a lot of deals, right? If you don't need any money to go to the closing table, but you actually get paid money every time you buy a house, that's a really good structure to use. And this one, this lender we have used before, and they actually prefer the master promissory note. So when we refinance this property, whether that's with another private lender or a bank, then the proceeds of that cash out refinance will go to the next deal, and our lender will continue to get monthly payments, which they like. All right, so that's how we structure deals with private lenders. And if we're buying that way, right, we have to buy that house at a steep discount. So we can't pay top dollar for the house, because we need that low loan to value for our private lender, and we want to have that 70 to 75% loan to value cover the full investment of the property. So it's going to be kind of around the ballpark of that 70% rule. All right, super common with wholesalers, flippers. The problem is it works really well if that seller is willing to take a low all cash offer. The problem is that a whole bunch of sellers aren't really helped by a low all cash offer, right? Maybe the reason they're selling their house really isn't that they need the money, it's something else. They don't want to manage the property anymore. They've got multiple family members involved. They have a family member renting the house and not paying rent. Who knows? There's a long list of reasons. And so we need to make another kind of offer to try to satisfy them. All right. And so that is where we're talking about seller financing. We are adding new episodes every week, so make sure and subscribe and check out all of our content at truewealthinvestors.com.